Hi students, welcome to lesson number 25, Douglas McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y. After studying this lesson, you will be able to understand the life and career of Douglas McGregor's. To elaborate Douglas McGregor's contribution to public administration, to analyze assumptions and features of theory X and theory Y, to discuss the relevance and importance of theory X and theory Y, to examine the critical analysis on theory X and theory Y. The socio-psychological approach to administration began emergence during 1950s. This approach was pioneered by such distinguished social scientists as Douglas McGregor, Abraham Maslow, Chris Ergris, Rensis Likert and Frederick Edgeberg. The ideas of these writers on relationship between man and the organization and the implications of interpersonal relationship in organizational setting constituted the socio-psychological approach. These writers were concerned not only to analyze the behavior of the people and its effects on all aspects of the organization, but also study how the people were affected by the processes of organization. The various themes dealt with in their works mainly related to motivation and morale of the employees, types of leadership behavior, job satisfaction and participative management, conflict management and integration of the goals of the individual and those of the organization. Their stream of thought encompasses such diversified fields of study as sociology, psychology, social psychology, industrial psychology, economics and cybernetics. The social psychological approach is also known as the humanistic or the neo-human relations school of administration. The main features of social psychological approach are: 1. The social psychological approach regards organization as systems of interdependent human beings. According to the advocates of this approach, people working in an organization affected aims as well as the methods used to accomplish those aims. The exponents of this approach, therefore, have studied human attitudes, expectations and value systems of the workers as well as the tensions and conflicts in the organizations. They have examined the important impact of these social psychological factors on the productivity and adaptability of the organization and also on the consistency and morale of the employees. Second, the exponents of this approach point out the bad effects of traditional organizations, too much control over people. The organizations continuing attempt to increase control over the behavior of the people is self-defeating. In the opinion of the advocates of this approach, increased control, authoritarian organizational environment not only suppresses human personality but also produces negative reactions in the workers. Too much control will lead to internal conflict in the organization and reduces its ability to cope with inevitable environmental changes which take place in the long run. 3. The proponents of this approach believes that the employees work best in an environment that treats them with regard and respect and encourage them to develop and utilize their abilities. Hence, they advocate the restructuring of organizations in such a way as to give workers 1. More interesting and challenging work, 2. Freedom to exercise discretion and initiative, and 3rd. Participation in the formulation and execution of policies affecting them. The restructured organizations must have less hierarchy, less control, and more humanity in organizational life. 4. According to them, there is no inherent conflict between the goals of the organization and the goals of its members. In their view, an organization can be made more productive by meeting the goals of the individuals working in it. They advocate the integration of the goals of the organization and those of its members. 5. Almost all of the exponents of this approach express the positive view of human nature. According to them, the average human enjoys work as a natural activity. They are eager for opportunities to show initiative and bear responsibility. Hence, the management must provide work climate for the workers to contribute their best in realizing organizations as well as their own goals. 6. From the point of view of this approach, the task of management can be considered as the organization of individuals' behavior in relation to the physical means and resources to achieve the desired goals. Hence, it is important for the management to understand human behavior for the efficient accomplishment of the organizational goals. This approach, therefore, aims at improving management understanding of human behavior in organizations. 7. On the nature of work, some of the advocates of this approach express different opinions. For instance, Frederick Edgeberg believes that work itself is the primary source of the motivation in organization. On the contrary, Robert Dubin maintains that the worker's central life interest is not their work. They argues that employment is purely instrumental in nature. It provides the income with which the self-actualization on other pursued during the leisure hours of the job. Among the contributors to the neo-human relations approach or organizational humanism, Douglas McGregor's name is prominent. He is known for producing the contrasting concepts of theory X and theory Y, which are based on popular assumptions about work and people. Douglas McGregor was an eminent United States social psychologist. He worked as a professor of management at School of Industrial Management, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and as a consultant to the numerous organizations. He was in the vanguard of that behavioralist movement of post-World War II era. He specialized in human behavior within the organization. In analyzing individual and group behavior, he drew upon insights obtained both as an academician and as a practitioner. McGregor's contributions to management development are considered to be of great value. Like other psychologists, McGregor consistently studied the assumptions about human behavior which underline managerial actions. Is a theoretical construct characterizing theory X and theory Y. Assumptions assumes a quest for high performance in the organization. McGregor was famous for is a formulation of theory X and theory Y, first propounded in 1960 book The Human Side of Enterprise. This work is a classical in the history of American management thought. In it, McGregor explored some of the barriers to effective individual contributions and offered suggestions on ways by which increased employee participation and creativity might be stimulated and utilized. McGregor published numerous articles and a couple of books on social, psychological and related areas. First, The Human Side of Enterprise. 2. Leadership and Motivation. 3. The Professional Manager. Besides this, 3 monumental works. McGregor published many research papers on diverse areas of social psychology. McGregor's theory X and theory Y stand for two opposing sets of managerial assumptions about human nature and human behavior in organization. Theory X represents for the authoritarian management, while theory Y stands for the participative management. Theory X gives a negative view of human nature, while theory Y indicates the positivity of human nature. Thus, these two theories seek to examine the attitudes of management toward its employees and explain the consequences of different managerial strategies. We will examine these two theories and their implications to management. On the basis of McGregor's empirical researches into organizational conflicts and maladjustment in human relations, McGregor generalizes that control is the base of human behavior. It is viewed as an integration of human behavior, either 1 through coercive compulsion or 2 through motivational self-control. On the basis of these two assumptions, McGregor developed managerial control thesis known as the theory X and theory Y. Theory X is based on the traditional conception of control and direction. The traditional assumptions about human motivation of theory X are: 1. Average human being is an indolent, lazy and inherently dislikes work and will avoid it if they can. 2. Because of this human characteristic of dislike of work, most people must be coerced, controlled, directed and threatened with punishment to get them to put forth adequate effort toward the achievement of the organizational objectives or goals. 3. Average human beings prefer to be directed, wish to avoid responsibility wherever possible. 4. Average human beings have relatively little ambition. 5. Average human beings want security above all. They want job security, economic security, etc. 6. Most people lack creativity and are largely indifferent to organizational needs. McGregor calls his X theory is traditional view of managerial direction and control. It represents a relatively pessimistic view of human nature and the traditional deep-seated distrust of an average man's ability to achieve the task assigned to him. Its assumptions smack of paternalism and traditionally known as carrot and stick theory, means use of reward and punishments. The assumptions of theory X treat man not only as an insecure beings responding to the language of fear, but also dislike of work and one who avoids it. If a manager believes that the assumptions of theory X accurately describe the fundamental human nature, it tends to mold his behavior toward his subordinates accordingly. The leadership styles of theory X, managers will tend to be authoritarian. They prefer to rely to greater extent on close supervision, tight control and disciplinary methods. McGregor argues that management by directions and control and cannot sufficiently motivate people to work toward organizational goals. He emphasizes that so long as the assumption of this theory X continue to influence managerial strategy, we will fail to discover, let alone utilize, the potentialities of the average human beings. He therefore concludes that theory X assumptions are generally inaccurate. McGregor comes out with an alternative theory Y with underlying principles of integration to replace traditional concepts of direction and control. McGregor makes play for a new set of assumptions about human nature and individual behavior in organizations, and he calls them theory Y. The theory Y assumptions he feels will lead to the integration of individual growth and organizational goals. The assumptions about human motivation of theory Y, which McGregor characterizes, are: 1. Given the right conditions, the average human being enjoys work and finds it as a natural as a rest or play. The ordinary or average person does not inherently dislike work. 2. External control is not the only means for obtaining effort. Man will exercise self-direction and self-control in the service of the objectives to which is committed. 3. Most significant reward that can be offered in order to obtain commitment is the satisfaction of the individual's self-actualizing needs. This can be a direct product of effort directed towards organizational objectives. 4. The average human being learns under proper conditions not only to accept but to seek responsibility. 5. At present, the potentialities of the average persons are not being fully used. Theory Y leads to the preoccupation with the nature of relationships, with creating an environment which will encourage commitment to organizational objectives and which will provide opportunities for the maximum exercise of initiative, ingenuity and self-direction in achieving them. This theory recognizes interdependencies of human organizations and participative management. The central principle of this assumption of the theory Y is that integration of the behavior is the key process in the management. The concept of integration demands that the needs of individual and those of the organization be recognized. McGregor calls is a theory Y an open invitation to innovation. There is a little doubt that each set of assumptions will affect the way managers carry out their managerial functions. The theory Y, in contrast to the theory X, projects a positive image of people and defines them as a self-directed and creative. The theory implies that a properly motivated people can achieve their own goals by directing their efforts toward accomplishing organizational goals. In other words, theory Y provides that individuals opportunities to achieve their self-actualization as well as the goals of their organization. McGregor emphasizes that people are not by nature passive or resistant to organizational goals. He sees no inherent conflict between organizational goals and individual goals. McGregor argues that work can be and should be a source of self-fulfillment in and of itself. He believes that people want to take a responsibility and express themselves through creative and productive work. What is required is that the organization should reshape themselves in such a way as to recognize the needs of the individual and needs of the organization. The essential task of the management is to arrange organizational conditions and methods of that operation so that people can achieve their own goals best by directing by their own efforts toward organizational objective. According to theory Y, managers cannot be autocratic with staff. The theory Y assumptions require the managers to play the role of helper rather than a director, encouraging people so that the whole department works together. A manager holding a theory Y, part of human nature, sees the organizations not as a work missions but as a collection of people engaged in problem solving. It tends to place more emphasis on positive motivation and self-management. It focuses attention on individuals and their relations with the organizations rather than structures and procedures of administration. Organizations based on theory Y philosophy created an atmosphere of freedom with few controls and responsibly loose supervision. In such atmosphere, people work gladly because work is inherently satisfying. The managerial strategies of theory Y would most likely lead to high productivity. McGregor concludes that theory Y assumptions will be more profitable for the individual as well as the organization. Managers and administrators frequently draw the conclusion that people are lazy from watching some of their employees who may be lazy at work, but the same employees are often quite industrious in one or more activities of the job. McGregor's study of the industry points to a fact of correlationship between this acceptance of the responsibility and commitment to the goals. He has discovered that unilateral direction and control pertaining to administration of salaries and promotions can effectively be reduced by giving individuals greater opportunity to play an active part in the decisions affecting their careers. McGregor's motivation theory has been subjected to many criticisms. Is a rejection of traditional conception of administration has been questioned. Traditional concepts such as control and direction, which he has rejected, are still of great value for understanding the human motivation. Theory X, which McGregor does not favor as it leads an emphasis on the tactics of control, is of a great value. Despite all the researchers and theories of motivation that have come to fore in recent years, it should not be forgotten that the carrot and stick theory, use of reward and punishment, is still a very useful theory that could motivate the people. Theory X assumes that the people do not work, shun responsibility, prefer to be led, and motivation is a response to threat or punishment. In contrast to the negative views about the nature of human beings, theory Y holds that people are fundamentally motivated, have the potential for self-development, have capacity to assume responsibility, and they prefer and can exercise self-control in achieving organizational goals. According to McGregor, management practices are largely shaped by these diametrically different views as explained in the theory X and theory Y. Thank you.